Okay, now it is recording. Let me share my desktop. Okay, so uh, up to this we discussed the Poisson-Gamma model and the hierarchical nature of the Poisson-Gamma model that we discussed, and then today we are going to discuss the hierarchical regression model, and mostly we are going to talk about the intuition behind the hierarchical regression model. Is more as I gave you one example, that suppose you want to predict the demand of a particular product, say uh, demand and price relationship, suppose you want to predict, and turns out the demand is you can expect that demand and price relationship will be slightly different in different state, different region, different city. A demand behavior in a metro city will be different than a tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So you want, there is a natural hierarchical system is there, right? So you want to fit a regression model, but also you want this natural hierarchical system to be built in your modeling effort. Okay, and turns out Bayesian hierarchical regression model uh, gives a very natural fits to that requirement. Okay, particularly, and they pool information for disparate group without assuming that they belong to precisely in the same population. What it means, this particular sentence is, in a sense, suppose you have a tier 2 city and a metro city. Suppose tier 2 city is near the metro city, and you have very few observations in the tier 2 cities, suppose, but you already have some sense of about the demand curve of the metro cities. So it will pool the information from the metro cities, and somewhat it will stabilize the coefficient values for the uh, tier 2 city, which is near about the metro city. Now, what happens is, but if you fit a separate regression model for, say, tier 2 city and separate regression model for metro city, you can expect that your result for metro city will be pretty good, at least in statistical sense. The coefficient value will be much more stable, because you will have a lot of samples from the metro cities. But in the tier 2 city, you will have much less sample. Okay. Since tier 2 city, you will have a less sample, your coefficient estimates and all other parameter estimates will be less reliable. Standard error will be high. So your inference from such models for tier 2, tier 3 cities will be unreliable. Here, hierarchical regression model plays a very good role and sort of comes into the rescue. So,
Sir, can you give another example of this kind of regression or this kind of scenario where we can use hierarchical regression?
So this is the one, is this demand curve thing. Another example is
Sir, can we say that the accidents happen in different cities in different ways?
Correct. Yes. Accidents. Wherever you have some sort of geographical hierarchy is there. Or another example is, say, in a say metrics performance indicator, you will or key performance indicator for different employees in big organizations. So there will be a hierarchy, right? There will be some, ground level workers or frontline workers in a hierarchical systems, and then there will be managers, and then there will be mid-tier managers, and the managers will be reporting to the executives. So their performance, this how key performance. So naturally on the top, there will be only like, each, there could be only 15 managers. It's like 15 states, but within each managers, probably there could be 50 junior managers are there, and each junior manager is probably, managing up on an average 5 to 20 people team. So, so there is a natural hierarchy, and if you want to model KPI, key performance indicator, everybody's key performance indicators, and then this hierarchical regression model fits very nicely in that kind of scenarios. Okay, so wherever you have a natural hierarchy, okay,
Is there any
Uh,
direction of this like when we want to estimate like so in a
no, direction of the hierarchy is not a matter.
okay,
So typically there will be a sort of a pyramid structure.
yeah,
And I'm
so
saying
so
some
can we
sort
go
of,
downwards or upwards?
it doesn't matter. We will talk when we will do the hands-on, or in the look into the model, you will get a sense. So there is a one example I have in the my note. I don't want to go into this. This is example, a little bit old examples. I took it from my advisors. But unfortunately, I don't have the access to the data. So instead of handling with this one, rather I would prefer to go to the example I have with the, just a minute. Yeah, dynamic pricing with the hierarchical regression. So in the Bayesian package in R, we have this cheese data set. And in the cheese data set, that contains basically marketing data of certain brand name. I think the name is also available of this company. Processed cheese such as weekly sales volume, unit retail price, and some display activity in the various regional retailer accounts. Okay, a list of 88 retailer accounts are there. Okay, and then we figure out the cities and region, those things we figure it out. For each account, we can define the following linear regression. A model, we want to fit a log volume equal to beta 1. Actually, when we will do the hands-on, I'll show you that if you take log volume as a function of log price, the relationship is much more linear, okay, than if you just take volume and price. That is much more non-linear behavior, you will see. So log, that's we decided on just looking at the some scatter plot. We decided, okay, we'll model log volume as function of log price. So if we change the price, how the volume will behaves. And epsilon is the regional market condition, relies on the region. So we would expect the same dispersion among the retailers. Okay, fine. So either you can fit a separate regression model for each retailer, which is, as I said, and we will see that it will become a very inefficient. Another way of doing it is some fit a hierarchical linear model, estimate the average impact of sales, and try to make a make some kind of thing like, estimate the average impact of sales volumes of the retailer if unit retail price to be raised by 5%. So suppose this is what we want to model. Okay. So we want to model that in a particular region or for a particular retailer. So there are different kind of retailers. Okay. And each retailer is catering to different kind of market segment. So their response to the 5% discount will be different. So it might happen some retailer respond to 5% discount positively, and some retailer just shy away from the discount. And I say, okay, they don't care kind of thing. But if they gave a 5% discount, how it is going to affect? And this is the main purpose. Suppose this is what we want to do. And so this is the data that we have from the library, Bayes impact library. We will take the cheese, and if we put the name of the retailers, and then it will give you 88 retailers. And then this is a piece of code which basically goes ahead and fit 88 separate linear regression for 88 retailer. Each retailer, it fits a regression. Okay. And at the same time, what it does, you have a simple from the Bayesian package. There is a built-in function that are hierarchical linear model. You provide data, you provide, how many MCMC things you want to do. And in the regression data, you have to tell what is your Y, what is your X. Okay, Y is my log volume, log of the volume, and X is the intercept time, whatever display activity, and the price. All you have to do, you have to provide those things and as a list, and then you have to provide that data basically, and that will fit the entire thing. So the question is, and then what happens, it fit the models, and for each retailer, so Price Chopper is one retailer which is based in Albany, New York. And for that, the intercept parameter is 10.52. The coefficient for display activity turns out to be 1.21, and coefficient for price parameter turns out to be negative 3.70. And then there is a retailer which is called Kroger. It's a very big chain which is based in Atlanta. In their Atlanta shop, their coefficient turns out to be negative 1.66. So you can expect, if you give a 5% discount, Price Chopper in Albany, New York will affect more deeply. The volume rise will be more deeper than Kroger Atlanta. Okay, so the sale, you can expect the sale to go up in the Price Chopper much sharply than Kroger at Atlanta.
So
Now you
what
see,
does B price like indicates?
it is the coefficient. So basically, let me just a minute. Let me go through. So, okay, let me open the So it is like yi equal to v0 I plus v1 I times price x I j. Let me put a j. Now I runs from 1 to 88. So there are 88 retailer. I stands for the ith retailer, and j equal to I think 1 to dot 65. So or actually it should be ni. I remember. So j is the jth week. Yij is the number, the volume of sale in a ith retailer on the jth week. Now B naught I is the intercept for the ith retailer. B1I is the intercept for the ith retailer, which corresponds to price on the for the ith retailer on the jth week. So each week you are giving a depending on the market demand and supply, you're offering different kind of price. And then they are negotiating, and then they are each retailer is coming up with a different kind of price, slightly price variation is there. So this is, so B1I is the price for the ith retailer. So similarly, so B underscore price is the coefficient. This B1I corresponds to the, ith retailer. Now, how many B naught I means intercept. So how many intercept parameter I will have? There I equal to 1 to 88. So I will have for 88 retailers, I will have 88 intercept parameters. So I'm printing here only the top 6. So the top 6 intercept parameter, but there are 88 such intercept parameters up here. Similarly, B1I is stands for the coefficient for the price. Okay. Now the idea, typically what happens is this B naught I follow, typically what happens, they assume that these B naught I's are coming from some B naught, comma, sigma square. So this is as if, or sigma naught square. Okay. And B1I, so this parameter is following maybe another normal, which follow B1, comma, sigma 1 square. Is it clear now why I'm calling it hierarchical regression? So the model has 88 parameters, and each so basically it is like, I can write, though I'm writing it as a B naught I, effectively that's how it is. I should write B naught 1, comma, B naught 2, comma, B naught 3, comma, dot, B naught 88. Let me just give a script. So these 88 intercept parameters are coming from a normal distribution, and actually here is a epsilon. ij. Okay. And then similarly, I will have the coefficient parameters here, coefficient for the price B1, 3 and B0, B1. So there are 88 such parameters. So B11, B12, B13, I can write it in this way. This will be much more better. Okay.
Won't these B1, let's say B188, won't it depend on some fact about the 88th retailer rather than just coming from a normal distribution around B1?
Say it again.
So we will want to feed some local information to B1J, right?
Correct.
Instead of it coming from some normal distribution, it should depend on some fact about the retailer's region or some details, right?
That you can do. That you can do later. I mean, I'm just now building at a small toy level thing. Eventually, you can do that.
I see.
At this moment, I'm just trying to develop this model. I'm saying this, these intercept, these coefficient, 88 coefficients, these 88 coefficients are following a normal distribution from a grand hyper prior distribution from normal B1 sigma 1 square.
I see.
And then what we will do, we will say that these distributions, so if these are prior, then I can have a posterior for this, right? And these posteriors are going to give me the, from the posteriors, I can make an educated guess of the, basically help me to estimate the B188, B187 to B11, all these coefficients. So that time data will kick in and let data decide how it will work. And then basically after that, if you say this is the prior part and the data model is basically if Eij, that guy will follow normal 0, comma, sigma I square. Now, see, when I'm saying sigma I square, that means effectively I have, so if actually let me just put it in here. When I'm saying that, that means sigma I square is also another parameter, the retailer parameter. So that means this guy, sigma I square, and typically I can follow, say, some kind of inverse gamma with some A and B. Now, why I'm saying sigma I square? Because it's basically that means sigma 1 square, sigma 2 square, dot, sigma 88 square. So now I'm saying that retailer specific sigmas, that means uncontrolled error or variability, that these sigmas, 88 sigmas, are coming from inverse gamma. And why I'm doing this? Because you remember, if you take I equal to 1, then it is actually a conjugate structure. It gives me a conjugate structure. So I want to take the advantage of that conjugate structure. Okay, so that is where this thing is coming. Now, the advantage you can see also this Atlanta, this Kroger and Winn-Dixie, they're both in Atlanta and their coefficient is somewhat similar. They're not very far. So this is, you will see some kind of geographical clustering or is happening automatically. So, and we will do it, when we will do it, we will see it much more clearly. And then what I did, I said that, okay, for the first retailer, if we drop the price by 5%, then the expected increase in volume would be how much? So what we did, I actually simulated, I did a posterior, Gibbs sampler is available for such model because, writing Gibbs sampler will be very difficult, very easy. You can see because everything I put it into the conjugate kind of structure, and then Gibbs sampler is automatically available. So using Gibbs sampler, if you simulate the numbers, and for each sampler, if you plug in the 5% drops, then you can see that how much volume will go up. And then from there, it turns out that on an average 20% volume surge you will see. Okay, so this kind of, and then how much this change is going to affect in the revenue. So you can compute, okay, how much, what is the current expected revenue and how much revenue it is going to changes you can expect out of it. So the current expected revenue is 3,700 something, near about 3,750. And you can see that on an average foot, you can expect revenue to shoot up to 4,300. So this kind of inference you can do. So suppose we have a standard multiple regression model where observation I clusters across subpopulation J, where the J indexes, for example, is a geographical location, social grouping, period in history. So here, when we are doing the thing, we did it on the retailer. Now what you can do, so we got a 88 retailer, but from the retailer, you can see there is a geography also you can pick it up. Say Albany, Atlanta, Balti, Wash, all these things. And instead of using it as a retailer, you can do the indexing. So here my indexing is based on retailer. I is my ith retailer. But I can make it as geography because there is a 2 cases which are Atlanta. So instead of saying one index for Atlanta Kroger and Atlanta Winn-Dixie, I'll say both are coming from Atlanta. So my indexing will reduce to 88 to maybe 44 or 50, not more than that. But now my indexing are based on geographical location. Instead of retailer, it is based on geographical locations. So that you can play around a little bit. We have to define the problem accordingly, a little bit carefully, which is much more easy to interpret that why you're doing this indexing. So here I am doing this indexing, I'm motivating this indexing based on retailer, but you can try to do this indexing based on the geographical location or city. And social grouping, period in history. You, depending on the domain, depending on the problem in the context, all these things you can try out. And why, as I said, that we do not want to assume the regression coefficient are identical across these subpopulations. We want some degree of variability in the price, and this price, we want this price to be little bit variable based on the my clustering. So here I did my clustering or the segmentation based on the retailer. You can do this segmentation based on the geographical location. Then what will you will get for Atlanta, you will get one price coefficient. For Albany, you will get one price coefficient. So that is how, and because number of, here you have 88 retailers, but then you will develop the same model based on 50 locations. Okay. Are you guys with me? Any doubt? Okay. So the idea starts like that. So I have a Yij, which suppose follow normal distribution with some mean Mij and with Tj, and Yij is now this, and then Mij is beta naught j, beta 1j x1j to beta kj xkj. And for a random coefficient model, we assume that Bkj is equal to gamma k plus delta kj, where so where do I need to think? Okay, vector gamma k is the overall. Okay, so the idea is basically, suppose you have this beta kj, and just a minute. So you have this, okay, let me explain it in this way. So if you look into this one, I can write, say, B188 as some B1 plus some delta, okay, delta of 88, and this delta 88 is following some normal, maybe 0, sigma 1 square. Are you okay with this? I mean, this formulation? Hello?
So the parameter is also having some sort of like an association with that delta 88. So for
Correct.
each
No,
of
delta
those
88 is just variability around the beta B1.
around the B1. Okay.
How much deviating from B1? B1 plus a deviation is giving me B188.
Okay.
Right. And this delta 88 is following just normal 0 sigma 1 square of this sigma 1 square.
Okay. So for each B1I, we will have delta I's, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. This is what I'm trying to say here, basically. Okay.
Okay.
That is what it's trying to say. So effectively, this is what my model is. And then here, we assume I'm saying that this Tj is gamma, and then you can do this MCMC strategies simply prior. These are all, you can see that this is somewhat actually using, you can use a conjugate gamma structure, conjugate prior structure to develop a Gibbs sampler, and that is what it does. So this is a linear mixed effect model, hierarchical linear mixed effect model. And this is what we just discussed is some sort of generic representation of, so there could be a fixed effect and certain things could be mixed effect. And what you can do, you can say that, okay, my BIs are following Q variate normal with VB, epsilons are normal 0 sigma squared, and then these betas are following normal distribution, the sigma square are following inverse gamma, and VB is following. So it's like, you know, all interestingly have conjugate structures, and they're taking full advantage of these conjugate structures. And it has a full Gibbs sampler thing so that you can have a very efficient simulation strategy. And then you just simulate from the posterior using Gibbs sampler. Pretty much you can, in the MCMC pack, you have these samplers, you can, in a split second time, you actually simulate the values. Okay. Binomial linear regression with logit link. I don't want to actually go into this. It is in the same thing. MCMC logit is there. So I don't know. So let me, and same thing you can do with the Poisson hierarchical linear regression with Poisson. Count data. If your Y is following some count data, like, you know, you can, I think we can do it for the EPL data set. We can try to model it actually. So I will prepare this data set and probably I will just, we can try to work on it. That will be fun. So I promised you another assignment, so I'll give you that assignment. So is it clear to you now? I mean, sorry about that. Is it clear to you now what the basic idea of hierarchical regression? The only difference would be in the data model. I mean, if your data, the dependent variable is a count data, you take the Poisson regression, you take the Poisson distribution, and then rest of the model lambda I as a function of log or lambda I, and then this kind of mixed effect model. Then if you have a binary response like Bernoulli distribution, then you take log theta by 1 minus theta logit kind of link function, and then again you can set up a linear mixed effect model. So basically linear mixed effect model is or any mixed effect model is a special case of hierarchical Bayesian regression model, Bayesian hierarchical regression model. Those of you who have studied mixed effect model or random effect models in your stat honors thing, just to let you know that these random effect model, mixed effect model that you have studied in your undergrads are actually all special cases of Bayesian hierarchical linear regression model. So, I mean, if you are not studied, stat honors, don't worry about it. I just thought I'll let you know. Okay. So, is that okay? Anybody have any doubt? Hello.
Is there are there considerations for so for MCMC, does the number of levels of hierarchy make it difficult to converge?
Yeah. Good question. That's a very good question, indeed a very good question. Let me go back to this. So if you look into this model, it has effectively, this is the data model, right? This is my data model. And then This is the first level hierarchy. Effectively, that is where we are stopping here, right? If you go beyond 2-3 levels, that is going, then pretty much you will be able to model everything. You will not, after certain 2-3 levels, your data, remember that all information, what is your data? Your data is effectively the Y and X, right? So the most immediate if modeling effect is here, then you have one level high. You can go maybe another 2 or 3 levels. But if you go too much, like 5, 6, 7 levels, what happens is that so much high level in that ivory tower, you don't have any information. The YX does not contain any information at that high level about those parameters. Turns out to be nuisance parameter. And if you try to fit that model, technically there is no problem. But remember that those, very high level model data parameters have no information about those high level parameters. The data does not contain any information. Since they do not contain any information, what will happen? Your MCMC will never, will have some convergence issue. I can bet your MCMC will have a convergence issue in those high level parameters. Okay. So, in fact, I think in 1983, there was a JASA paper, 1983 or 84. I will try to pull that paper. I think in JASA paper, they showed that if you go too high above to the hierarchical model, then you contain no information. Your information basically dissipates. Okay. Your high level parameters, hierarchical parameters, does not contain any information, or your data does not contain any information about these high level. Actually, I should write it in a reverse way, but that is what it says. They have proved it mathematically from an information theory point of view. So it's a very good point that you made, that probably 1 or 2 level is good enough. Beyond that, you don't need to go. In fact, my experience is also that if you go beyond 2 level, generally my experience is the model starts behaving very weird. Either it will give you some weird inferences, or the convergence will not happen. Your R hat will be like 5, 6, 10, something like that. So that is very expected kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So is this a fact about the way we iterate MCMC, or is this like just a property of hierarchical models? I'm just recalling.
It is property of hierarchical model, because in that JASA paper, they proved it that in a hierarchical model, if you define too many hierarchy, higher the hierarchy, lesser the data set contain less information about the higher layers. It contains more information about the layers which are close to the data level.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I was wondering if it was something like like a gradient vanishing problem as we have, but you're saying it's actually just about the
it is a modeling problem.
Yeah. Okay.
It is a modeling problem. If the model is bad, then gradient will vanish and MCMC will not converge, because the model, certain parameters of the model are such which are not trainable. That means data does not contain any information about those parameters. So you remember, if you have taken the any deep neural network classes, in that deep neural network implementation, typically nowadays in the Python module, they will give some parameters are trainable and some parameters are not trainable, right? And those parameters are not trainable means basically data does not contain any information about those parameters. Okay, so that means basically you are just saying that, boss, I'm just taking some sigma equal to 1, or this parameter I'm just by ad hoc taking 1 because my data does not contain any information about this parameter. So I have to take it. I'm taking a by default 1 or 0, whatever makes sense, whatever makes me to give a reasonable inference. I'm just taking that value, I'm going ahead. So that means that sigma equal to 0 or sigma equal to 1 or mu equal to 0, whatever you are choosing for that non-trainable parameter, you are just, you're not estimating, you are not training that parameters, right? Similar concept is happening here. If you go too high a hierarchy, suppose you decide, I will do a very great model, I'll make a 5-layer hierarchical model. But boss, in the 5th layer, your parameter data does not contain any information about your 5th layer. Maybe in the 4th layer, some information, or 3rd layer, up to 3rd layer, it contains some information. But on the 4th layer and the 5th layer, it does not contain. Suppose in the 4th layer, you have 3 parameters, and the 5th layer, you have 1 parameters. So that means 4 parameters, those on the 4th and 5th layer, your data does not contain any information. Okay. And naturally, whatever tools and technique you will use, they will not be able to estimate those. And that is the time you will face gradient vanishing problem. That is the time you will face MCMC is not converging. All those things comes into the picture. Just because you have a great model does not mean that the model is trainable, or your data has the information about some weird parameter that you put into the model. So your model also has to be sensible. You have to be, just because I can make a hierarchical model, I shouldn't make 5-6 layers. Maybe up to 1st layer, 2nd layer, maybe up to 3rd layer, it makes sense. But if the 4th layer does not make any sense, if I cannot, so suppose I'm saying that, okay, my 1st layer is, cities, 2nd layer is states, 3rd layer is the region, and that's it, I'm stopping there. And then I have put a 4th, 5th, and 6th layer. What is the meaning of 4th, 5th, and 6th layer? I mean, it does not make any sense, right? So, but you just for fun, you put it in there, but your data does not have any information about 4th, 5th, and 6th layer. So you have to be, a model is best, which you can explain. So you have to be a bit careful about whether it makes sense. Okay. Acha. Any other question? That was a good question. That was very good question.
I have a very abstract question that I will probably ask at the end of the class, which relates to this. So,
okay. Any other question? If no other question, then you can ask your question.
yeah.
Go ahead, Sahil, you ask me a question.
Okay, so this is going to be vague, so bear with me.
No problem.
If you are of the philosophy that underlying any inference process is some sort of Bayesian reasoning going on, or approximation of Bayesian reasoning going on, then and implicitly when you pick parameters, you have implicitly chosen one instantiation of a model hierarchy, right? So in the case of, to take the simple example of what we were doing earlier, the 88 retailers, if we just looked at one retailer, then essentially we are using just a single instance of the hierarchical model. Instead of inferring a hyper prior or something, we just have a single instance. Then any layer at which we stop is some sort of expert judgment, right? Like you said, we will just fix the non-trainable parameters. We just choose it ourselves and say we will not depend on the data for it. But the expert must have come to that judgment also in a Bayesian way, and probably implicitly via a hierarchical model. So I am just a little. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah, you're talking like my advisor. My advisor exactly argues like that, actually. So yes, I mean, I agree with you to a large extent that you can when you are taking a trainable, non-trainable parameter, and you are saying that, okay, I have a parameter which is not trainable, and I'm just taking a mu equal to 1, and that gives me a reasonable inference, and I'm happy with it. You can say that some sort of Bayesian subjective prior information is going on. Yes. Right. I agree. That is one way to Bayesian way to argue the problem. Yes, I agree with you. And my advisor would have been very happy to hear it, actually, the way you are arguing it. That's exactly the line of argument he always makes.
Yeah, so in this case, it seems like we would have no option but to just model like several hundred layers probably of hierarchical models, and each one of them sort of crystallizing onto particular parameters.
Correct.
And the fact that it can't be like that we lose mutual information after just 4 or 5 layers, that is very disheartening to me.
Yeah, the thing is, my point is, it depends, end of the day, it depends on what kind of data available to you. Okay, you have to be a bit pragmatic. What I'm trying to say, the mistake I have seen many statisticians and data scientists, they make that, oh, they want to come up with a grandeur model. Okay, like that will solve all the problem kind of thing. But end of the day, my data is limited. My data is finite, right? If data is limited, data is finite, my ability to infer and predict always in that finite context, I will never be able to solve all the grandeur problems, all the problems, or all the infer everything with that grandeur model. So my ability to develop a model and implement the model only with respect to the data that I have available. Okay, so we have to always keep that in mind. What we can do is always some kind of toolbox, sort of a generic toolbox, which we can always come and which we can try to, implement in many problem here and there, like, many bunch of problems can be fit into that. For example, generalized linear model. Okay, that is one toolbox in the hands of data scientist or the statistician that fits many shoes. I mean, that's a sort of, fits into many problems, and has its purpose. But you cannot implement each and every problem with that. You can solve each and every problem with that one model you learned. So,
So you're essentially saying something like you've got to keep the model complexity in check based on the data.
correct. Yes. You cannot develop a model which has a exponential complexity. Exactly, that is what my point is. So you have to keep in mind. So that makes it much more humble in terms of, because at the end of the day, my data is finite. I'm working on a finite database.
So the paper you referenced has not hard limits, but soft limits that it will
Correct.
just be exponentially bad or something rather than.
Correct. I'll get that paper. I think, and if not, I'll pull that paper. I think it was 1984 JASA paper on hierarchical regression models. I'll figure it out. Okay, and I'll share it with you guys. But my experience is always, instead of making a complicated so if you have a too complex hierarchical model, then that hierarchical regression model will be as bad as deep neural network model, because many parts of the deep neural network models you cannot explain, and it turns out to be a black box model, right? And same thing will happen if you create a 4, 5, 6 layers of hierarchical regression models, because maybe first layer you can explain, second layer you can explain, maybe third layer you can explain, but then there will be layer you cannot explain, fourth, fifth, sixth layers, and you are saying that, oh, I put that layer because it gives me great result. Okay, but can you explain it? And that is where this whole notion of explainable AI comes in. And I think it is better to have a model which you can explain, which to anybody. Because end of the day, black box models has this. In a black box model, what will always happen if there will be explosion of parameters, and how you control those parameters. How reliable those estimates of parameters, whether it is meaningful to even. So you have.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking for the particular case of interpretability, sometimes it might be natural to have many levels, right? For example, one that comes to mind is, let's say I want to figure out how many hours I should study to get some marks in the exam. And then I can probably model it as, okay, what institute I'm in, okay, and what subject I'm in, and who's the teacher, and within that, which part of the subject I'm studying. So like there's a natural.
Correct. If you have many layers, no problem. So for example, in a very big organization, suppose you model KPI of employees, key performance indicators of the employees in an organization. And then in that organization, there could be 15 layers of hierarchy. So from a fresher from engineering college, or similar CMI kind of BSc MSc college who is getting in, from that layer to say CEO, there might be 15 layers of management systems are there. Suppose, I'm just saying, if that is the layer of management systems are there, then you can naturally think of developing a 14 layer hierarchical model if you have the data at each layer on each employees, and that is perfectly fine. But if you have a organization with a 15 layer and you're trying to fit a 20 layer hierarchical regression model, then does it even make sense? So that is where my problem starts. That maybe that's a very good model. It will predict the, I mean, some people try to argue that there are some, maybe there are some clustering, inherent clustering happenings, and that is what is getting discovered. That is one way of arguing that, okay, and that is getting discovered, and that is why best optimal layer you are getting at a 18 layer or 19 layer. There may be some underlying subpopulation, subclusterings are happening, which are not being captured by the physical layers of management. Okay. And it is good to identify those clusters. So that means it is a demand on the data scientists then that if you are putting those additional layers makes the model perform better, then you have to also explain why those additional layers is performing better. So again, comes to the explainability, interpretability of the model, that why it is working better. Is there a subpopulation? And what are those subpopulations which are not identified? So if you can identify those, then it's fine. Anything else? Okay. If no other discussions are going on, then we can